Okay, so this is part two. We're actually going to start getting into the actual cases, and hopefully you can extract what you need from these, and gives you some tactics and strategies and some talking points when you're actually engaged with Dawa with these TMOA cult members. Okay, so some of the things will be scattered, and I'll give you my ideas and thoughts as we dealt with them. So let's get right into it. So the individual in this case, and I'm dealing with this one because I recently just had this engagement and it's fresh in my head, so I can remember some of the things that were going on. So this, just to give you some context, this was an older brother that is a Jamaat member or associated or affiliated with a Jamaat, considers themselves a Talib or a follower of Mubarak Jalani, but they're still kind of like disconnected currently from TMOA for whatever reasons. We didn't get into that. They wanted, so this all began, engagements began because the person wanted to engage with R2Fs or speak to R2F hosts, specifically the R2F host, and like specifically like myself. And I'll get into why I believe that is, but Allah knows best later on in this. And well, I'll just say it right up front so I don't forget. There's people who want to speak with myself or Mubarak or Amr or Hanif, people that are really very very visible, whatever the word is, people against TMOA and Mubarak Jalani. And what you can call this in nowadays terms or in modern terms is clout chasing. They want to speak to us just so they can go back in their circles and say how they spoke to us, addressed us, or whatever, right? With no real intentions of actually trying to get to a resolution or gain an understanding or come to some kind of platform of mutual understanding and beneficial dialogue. You see this time and time again. They just all want to speak to the head guy, right? And alhamdulillah, we do our best to make ourselves available to everybody. It takes a lot of time and effort to give this dawah, to engage with these people, but we do our best. But we've gotten better at identifying these people that are just clout chasing, that really don't have any real intentions, and Allah knows best their true intentions, but according to their actions, it appears that they don't have any real intentions on getting anything productive out of the conversation. So this is what that individual was doing. And it becomes evident because you see where their energy is misplaced. And we'll go through that. Instead of addressing the source of the problem, they come to us because, one, we've made ourselves accessible, and the people that they need to be talking to, which is like people in TMOA, the leaders in TMOA, they know they can't talk to those people. They know they can't access those people, but they want to access us, and just so they can go to a third party who's blind of our conversations and say, yeah, I said this, I said that. Now I checked in, especially with the older generation. Unfortunately, hopefully may Allah protect us from that. Is sometimes we get older and we think automatically because we have some kind of age or seniority, that we're automatically right. These young bulls, and I'm 40 something years old, and these guys think that we're children or whatever. That they automatically have upper hand on you, and that they know more, and these sort of things. And it's unfortunate with these older generations where they can't accept the fact that they actually lack a lot of knowledge. Alhamdulillah, Allah woke us up a little bit earlier than them to realize, like, we haven't learned correct Islam, and then we started studying and learning correct Islam, and just like basic fundamental stuff. And you'll see where these guys are really misplaced on a lot of their basic Islamic knowledge, and it's unfortunate because they a lot of them won't actually recognize that, and they'll may Allah protect us all, but they'll die in this falsehood. So he wanted a dialogue with the host. He wanted to speak to us, begin some kind of dialogue. Where this was what was presented to us through a third party, a mutual third party, and but we were, and this meeting was supposed to happen. We were going to entertain him. The meeting was supposed to happen during the weekend that we're having our R2F event. We're actually going to set aside specific time for myself, Mubarak, and whoever else he wanted to be there so that we can have this discussion, right? But we told him, like, we're traveling, we're going to be with our families, we got other things going on that weekend. We will talk to you because we do want to give you dawah, but we gotta set some parameters, because we asked him for a list of topics that he wanted to discuss, and I think that was it. We just wanted a list of topics that he wanted to discuss, along with his basic proofs and evidences, so that when we actually do have this discussion, we can stick to those topics and go on from there. And then, since you want this grand audience, that we're going to record it, we're going to document it, and we're going to publish it, right? Because if you just want a private conversation, we could do a three-way call. We could do a private Zoom call. We could do whatever you want, but without actually having us to take time out of our day away from our families while we're traveling to come and speak to one individual, right? Or at first he was supposed to gather a panel of like 5 to 10 people to have this discussion. I'm pretty sure that fell through, because no one on his side is going to be willing to engage with us in any type of meaningful debate or discussion or panel. That's just not going to happen. So, but once he started giving him these like stipulations, like this is what we need, he started waffling. So eventually we got into like a conversation over the phone to try to set some things clear, and a lot of things came out of this conversation, and we'll go through that. So first, remember, we talked about, the pillars. About one of the pillars is parlay, where you want to have a two-way conversation. You want it to go both ways, right? It's down. I got it noted down here. Excuse the PowerPoint presentation. I just kind of jotted things down. I didn't want to spend too much time on the presentation of it, just kind of get the information out there. And we also talked about establishing the purpose. What's the purpose of this engagement? And he made it very clear, even though he was trying to pass it off as something else. He kept using words like dialogue, conversation, but here's direct quotes from what he said. He said, "I am not going to go into all of those things," meaning the things that we wanted to talk about, meaning the issues that we thought were important to discuss with him. He's like, "I'm not going into those things." And he says, "I will be honest with you. I will not discuss those issues." And he says, "I will not go into what y'all would like to go into. But y'all can ask me questions about that," meaning the things that he talks to. So, and remember I talked about some of that advice when you're engaging with these people. So you had the pillars, the parlay, and purpose. You see right here, his purpose is that he wants to preach to us. He wants to preach to us. He wants us to listen to what he wants to say, and not even preach. He wants to teach us, because he says that then we can ask him questions about what he told us, like he's going to give us a class or something, right? And it's not a parlay, it's not a discussion, it's not a conversation, it's not a dialogue. It's a one-sided engagement. That's what he wants. And again, when I talked about like as far as like the power dynamics, about leverage and these sort of things, he's trying to establish himself as if he's the authority, and he's going to tell us about whatever he wants to tell us, and then we can just ask him questions about it, like we're sitting in a class, right? So at this point, it becomes very clear. It's like, okay, especially with this engagement, like we're not going to like take time while we're traveling to go sit with you for however many hours so that you can give us a lecture. You know what I mean? Which, that's fine. You want to give us a lecture, and this is what we said to him clearly. You want to give us a lecture. You want to tell us what you want to say, whatever. That's fine. All we're asking is that if you are asking us to listen to you, all we're asking from you is to listen to us. And he would not agree to it. Every time we got to that point, he would just basically shut down, back out. He did not want to listen to what we had to say. And this is where these statements come out. I'll be honest, I'm not going to discuss those issues. So, right there it became very clear that, this is not going to be a productive conversation, and just definitely not worth it for us, to, take this time and put it away on him, because he just wants to speak and be heard, but not hear anything else. Okay. So he came from this perspective of, coming to establish peace. Okay, he's like, I came to establish peace. When Muslims are fighting, there's, and there's war. We should, as Muslims, our first thing is to establish peace. he said things like, then he started making these accusations. He said, these are not peaceful words. These are not peaceful statements, referring to the things that we say on our show. And he's like, y'all have expressed insightful speech, that we're inciting violence, right? The stuff that we say on our show is inciting violence. And he says, y'all say Mubarak Jelani is a mushrik and Bahu is a mushrik. And, he reemphasized that we have an obligation towards peace. So the response to him was like, and again, and I talked about this throughout, is these false narratives that these people spin. Okay. So he's talking about war, that we're fighting, right? And again, let's be clear. We're not fighting. No one's fighting. We are talking. We are speaking. We are saying words. Okay, the most you could probably say is that we're arguing, right, with words, not fighting. But right here, he put it into the terms of us having disagreements, verbal disagreements or theological disagreements, as it being fighting. Okay, we'll go down that road with you, and you'll see how I check him later. Because when he said that, I'm here to establish peace, the response was, why are you trying to establish peace when there's no fighting? Right? No one's out there fighting. No one's out there committing violence, right? Yet, inshallah, it doesn't ever come to that. But if you want to establish peace, you have to establish, like, okay, where's the war? Where's the non-peace? Where's the violence? And he said basically his answer to that was that we have insightful speech. We're inciting people to violence. And what's interesting about this, and I didn't get a chance to cover it with him on the phone, is that really what he was pointing out is that the things that we're saying could incite members of TMOA to commit violence against us, right? And here's where the problem is, because we give people access and we want dawah and we listen to people, right? Because this conversation was like an hour and a half long, right? Hour and a half I took away from my family to try to talk to this individual. Somehow it became our fault that because of the things we're saying, it would cause members of TMOA to transgress us and commit acts of violence against us because of what we said. Think about that. We said whatever we said, and he's saying it's inciting violence, which you can have different opinions about that. But the violence he's referring to is violence coming from TMOA. Not violence that we're telling R2F members, because I said this to him. When have we told R2F members to go smack people in their face? When have we put up most wanted posters with pictures of TMOA members on them? When have we had asked anybody from R2F or ex-TMOA members to fight, attack, or commit any acts of violence against anybody of TMOA? In fact, we said the opposite multiple times. But we know for a fact that, the things that we say and the things that we talk about could cause some rogue or violent members, the violent faction of TMOA, to try to harm us. We receive death threats. Members of ex-members have had people come to their house with guns. We've had multiple threats. We know this. Now, it's interesting that this individual, who's all about establishing peace, who allegedly all about establishing peace, doesn't actually say anything to the people that would be directly responsible for the violence, right? Doesn't say anything to the people that's directly responsible for the violence. So imagine, let's go back to the context of, back to the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told the Sahabas many times, before they're actually given permission to fight by Allah, like we're talking about the Meccan phase, right? Told the Sahabas many times that we can't fight. Allah didn't give permission to fight. We can't fight. We can't attack them. But how many times did the pagans attack and beat up and fight and even plan to assassinate Rasulullah? These things happened. The pagans were the ones that actually committed the violence. So imagine going back to that time, and this brother, and if he's listening, imagine yourself going back to that time, and who are you going to address? Are you going to go to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Not saying that we are Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but we're the ones giving dawah. We're the ones that's calling to the Quran and Sunnah, just like Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was calling to the Quran and Sunnah. Are you going to go to the people that are calling to the Quran and Sunnah and say, hey, what you're saying is insightful. It's causing these people that they're committing acts of violence against you. Why wouldn't you go to the people that are committing the acts of violence and say, hey, you guys need to stop committing act of violence. Let's establish peace. We have an obligation of peace, right? Because you know you can't go to those people. You can't go to the leaders of TMOA and say, hey, let's establish peace. Because whatever separation you have from TMOA, or whatever connection you do have with TMOA and Mubarak Jelani and that whole cult, you know, once you go there and say you want to establish peace, you want to establish a dialogue, or whatever it is that you were saying to us, if you said that to the leaders of TMOA, they would kick you out. You'd be dismissed and all that. Think about that. And remember I talked about being patient with individuals, because they will have their little sly remarks, they'll have their little passive aggressive insults, they have these ways of challenging your intelligence and all these different things, right? They'll spin the narrative, they'll accuse you of things, all baseless, right? So one of the things he said is, I'm trying to perceive your level of understanding, which is implying that, one, again, it's that whole thing about leverage, power dynamics. He's trying to perceive my level of understanding, which is fine, right? But when you say that out loud to somebody, what you're doing is you're being condescending to them, as if you are the authority again. You are in the position to perceive my level of understanding, okay, right? Because you could have easily watched any R2F videos or any of the content we put out to actually get a perception of my understanding of Islam. But when you say that to somebody out loud to their face, you're letting them know that what you're saying, in other words, even if you don't intend it, is that I don't perceive that you have adequate knowledge or level of knowledge or understanding of Islam. And he outright said this multiple times. Another false thing that he tried to spin was he said, y'all are basically said everyone is mushriks, which, and one thing that I do personally, this is what I do personally, and I've learned to do this throughout the years. It helps myself, and it helps shut down anything, because what these people do is they go on, like, I call them rants, right? You can call it preaching, but they want to go unchecked talking for minutes at a time. And while they're doing this, what they do is they say so many false things in this little rant, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. In that rant, they'll say so many false things that by the time they get done, you would forget half of the false things that they said, right? So if, like, for example, if I'm trying to check, I'll act like a TMOA member, and I'm trying to, address you, listener, as to your faults or whatever. And not going to be like, man, you're a murderer, you committed incest, and the last time that we went around the block, you lied to me, and I remember during the storm there was this hadith you quoted and it was wrong, and they'll just keep going for minutes at a time. But of course, like, you're in a conversation, you're not gonna remember everything they say, but what happens is whatever you don't address becomes the truth for them. Oh, he talked about, like, lying, he talked about not being a pedophile, but he didn't say anything about being a murderer. So yeah, that's true now. So what I've done is whenever anybody, now let them know this very clearly, whenever you say something wrong, I'm going to correct you. So it might seem like I'm interrupting you or whatever, but you have to know that whenever you say something wrong, I'm not going to let it slide. We are going to stay within truth, not your assumptions, not your opinions that you pass off as truth. We'll stick with truth and facts. So he said that y'all basically said everyone is mushriks. So I had to correct him on that, because we have never said everybody in TMOA is mushriks. We have never said that. What we have said very clearly, and if we have said anything that alluded to that, we can clarify or whatever, but we have said very clearly that anybody that knows of, believes in, and understands the concept of the seven sultans, we believe that they have left the folds of Islam. It's, like, very clear. It's a total shirk concept. We've got plenty of evidence. We don't have to go into all that, right? It's on our page, it's on our channel. Go look it up. That's what we have said. You have to understand some simple Islamic understandings. A Muslim can commit shirk, an act of shirk, a belief of shirk, and still be within the fold of Islam. A Muslim can commit an act of kufr or whatever, or not whatever, or kufr or disbelief, and still be a Muslim. It does not, committing an act of kufr does not make you a kafir. Committing an act of shirk does not make you a mushrik. Okay? Now you can get into the various levels of what the actual type of shirk it was, what the actual type of kufr was, and you may need to retake your shahada and these sort of things. But saying something is shirk does not cast a net and say, oh, we declare takfir and call all these people mushriks. We don't do that as Muslims. Declaring somebody a mushrik or whatever is talking about a belief, but when you're talking about individuals, you cannot just generally make those statements. Okay? And we've never have. We've been very clear of our determination, but people will take these false narratives and try to pass them off as being true, which they aren't. Another thing they will do is, like he said, you're making it personal. You have to remove yourself. And again, this is a false narrative. Not once during the conversation did I make anything personal about myself. I never talked about my own situation. I never brought in my own personal feelings, right? I never even addressed, like, how, he was insulted. I did address how he insulted me multiple times and how I didn't assault him. But they try to spin this because they're trying to discredit everything you're saying, because you're talking from the Quran and the Sunnah, right? If you're following the methodology, if you're following the pillars, right? You're speaking from the Quran and the Sunnah. But then they try to say that everything you're saying is you're making it personal. You need to remove yourself. That's a spin. That's also kind of like an insult to the knowledge that whatever you have, especially because whatever you know from the Quran and Sunnah, it's an insult for them to say this is you're making it personal. No, I'm telling you what Allah said. I'm telling you what Rasul said. I'm telling you what all the scholars and the Sahaba said. Okay, he says you have done a lot of wrong in presenting the facts. No, he may have misspoke, may have said something different, but again, in part one, I talked about the facts. How the facts, you can't say you've been wrong in presenting the facts. The facts are the facts, okay? Facts are facts. Facts aren't wrong. Facts have no feelings. Facts have no intent, okay? The facts are the facts. Now, I can say a fact with a different tone, right? I could put it in whatever context I want to put it in, right? But a fact is a fact. It's a fact. You can't change it. Okay, so there's no, you've done a lot of wrong in presenting the facts. Okay, well, you find a way to present the same facts in the right way. Okay, find a way to present the fact that Mubarak Jilani taught y'all shirk in a good way. What's the right way to present that Mubarak Jilani did a halal marriage with his own wife? What's the correct way of presenting that Mubarak Jilani has become a millionaire off of the membership dues that he collected from his followers? Like, present all these facts, and what's the right way to present it? I don't know other way besides to say what it is. It's a fact. The other thing he said is he went into this whole thing about my letter. He was like, in my personal opinion, right? That's fine to express your opinion, but opinions are just opinions. Like I really don't care too much personally about other people's opinions unless those opinions are supported and aligned with the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. He says, my personal opinion about your letter is that it started off as a help me letter, and it turned into an indictment, and then the indictment became a manifesto for your organization. Your organization is built off of the letter, which you're welcome to have. I say this all the time to people. You're welcome to have your personal opinion, even though it may be wrong, right? You could have an opinion, and it still could be wrong. To say our organization is built off of my personal letter, it's wrong. We didn't sit down and take my letter and be like, all right, here, guys, here's our manifesto. Here's our indictment against Mubarak Jilani, right? This never happened. So don't let them spin their own personal opinions on you. You can let them say their opinions, but to me, it's a waste of time debating or conversating or dialoguing back and forth about people's personal opinions. We can go, everybody can have their own personal opinion about anything. But if it's not backed with proof, evidences within certain criteria, and as Muslims, our criteria, again, our proof is the Quran and the Sunnah. If it's not in line with that, it doesn't mean anything. And then he says, ask anyone who has reasonable understanding. So one thing, this is like kind of like an insult saying like, we don't have reasonable understanding, or I don't have understanding. Another way you can simplify that is that you don't have common sense. But these people that say these types of things is that there is nobody outside of TMOA, outside of being a follower of Mubarak Jalani, that actually agrees with anything that y'all believers are do. Nobody, right? So when you say ask any reasonable person or has any reasonable understanding, they will agree with us, because we have done this. We have gone outside the context of TMOA people, right? And are you saying that all the hundreds of people that have left TMOA, none of us have any reasonable understanding of Islam or anything? Like you're saying, that's your thing. But, so that's another insult, and they won't actually hold up to this, because if you say, okay, let's go to the local Sunni sheikh and bring these to them, and whatever they say, the other person submits to, they won't agree to that. Then they'll start saying, oh, well, that's a Salafi sheikh, that's a Wahhabi sheikh, we need to go to Sufi sheikh Imam Bob on 3rd Street from California to get the opinion. This is what they do. So the Quran and the Sunnah. So now I took notes down of things to talk about for the first 20 minutes of our discussion. And we're 20 minutes into the conversation, and these are the types of things that he is saying. He says, I'm going to hold you accountable to Islamic law. Right? So the Quran and the Sunnah. He says, y'all have violated the boundaries of Islam. Okay? You have violated the boundaries of Islam. So he's alluding to the Quran and the Sunnah. And again, you can't let people just make these vague terms. Just like Mubarak Jalani in his own discourses. We follow the Quran and the Sunnah. And the next thing he's saying, it has nothing to do with the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? 20 minutes into the conversation, he makes all these references to Islamic law, Sharia, the Quran and Sunnah, and still, up to that point, had not quoted anything from the Quran and the Sunnah. Just making generic, bold statements and accusations without anything from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? 20 minutes conversation. So what you have to do is you always have to bring it back. It gets easy to get caught up into these back and forth. Always bring it back to the Quran and Sunnah, and I'll get into a little bit how I do like a knowledge check on him. And you always want to do like a knowledge check to kind of determine who you're talking to. And so another thing, and I'll just tell you some basic things where he's flawed at. So he says, y'all have violated the boundaries of Islam. And when we asked, okay, how do we violate the boundaries of Islam? He says, you can't talk about people's fathers, brothers, sisters, children's, and this is really where he got in, this is where he really wanted to say, sheikhs and imams, right? We can't talk about them. Where in the Quran and the Sunnah does it say that you cannot talk about people's fathers? In the Quran itself, Allah talks about the father, right? Walid, the father of Khalid bin Walid, talks about him. In the Quran, Allah talks about so many people. Aren't they somebody's father? Aren't they somebody's brother? Aren't they somebody's sister, wife, children? And he said you can't talk about sheikhs and imams. Where does it say that we cannot talk about sheikhs and imams? Nowhere. And these people will not bring anything to be able to support this, right? When people are doing wrong, as Muslims, we have to speak out against it, at least. Or hate it in our hearts and kind of disappear somewhere and hate it in our hearts. And that's the weakest form. Another thing that he, again, we're supposed to be held to the Quran and the Sunnah. He says, yes, I know your intentions. He actually told me that he knows my intentions. Okay? even though Prophet Muhammad SAW, when asked about if he knew people's intentions or if he knew what was in someone's heart, he basically said, no, I was not sent here to open up people's hearts. He did not know people's intentions. He knew what Allah revealed to him. Okay. He did not know what was in people's hearts. And this guy, who is, not even close to even being compared to Prophet Muhammad SAW, not even being close to being compared to, the dust underneath Rasulullah's feet, is saying that he knows my intentions. And then he says that intentions are clear through actions. It's clear in the first of the 40 hadith. So this is what happens. And again, I said it in the first video. Anytime they actually do, this is the first time they actually tried to bring something from the Quran and Sunnah to support what he was saying. But every time they do it, they fail miserably, because he said it's very clear in the first of the 40 hadith. And he was referring to the 40 hadith in Nawawi, where the first the first hadith literally says actions are based on intentions. Okay? It does not say intentions are based on actions. It actually says the exact opposite of what he was trying to prove. It says actions are based on intentions. It does not say intentions are based on actions. Okay, and then in the hadith, if you just look it up and read it, I guess a tafsir of or explanation of the hadith. The hadith is telling us as Muslims that whatever our actions are, the reward is based off of our intentions. So and it goes and it gives lengthy another actual example and explanation in the hadith itself. It talks about a person who committed or who made hijrah to get married instead of making hijrah for Allah's sake. So if a person makes hijrah to get married, then that's what they're going to get. They're going to get married. They're not going to get the benefit of doing it for Allah's sake because they didn't do it for Allah's sake. So again, anytime, always bring them to Quran and Sunnah. And for the Quran and Sunnah that and when you know that they're wrong, check them on it. Okay. He also said that fitna in the ayats, because I made a reference to what fitna was. This was the knowledge check I did on him. He said fitna in the ayats means trials and tribulations. Okay, when you're in the Holy Quran, there's multiple ayats that talk about fitna, right? Fight them until there's no fitna, any ayat where you're talking about fitna. And I asked him, what does when Allah is talking about fitna in the Holy Quran, what is he talking about? And he said, he's talking about trials and tribulations and hardships, which is wrong, and I'll get into that. The last one here is he says, which is absolutely wrong, he says, opinions can't be supported by the Quran and Sunnah. So what they try to do is they try to say, okay, I represent the Quran and Sunnah. I'm going to bring you the Quran and Sunnah. And then when I asked the person, well, when you say you bring in the Quran and Sunnah, according to what? He said, according to the Quran and Sunnah. And I was like, okay, so who's telling you what that means? It's direct. It's right from Allah. It's right from Rasulullah. And then he said, because I was like, you can't bring me the Quran and Sunnah in accordance to your own opinion. We're not going to accept that. If you want to bring the Quran and Sunnah, it has to be according to the generally accepted opinion. Which again, remember that methodology. Quran and Sunnah, according to what Allah said, according to what Rasulullah said, according to what the Sahaba said, and so on and so forth. Not according to what brother so-and-so said or sister so-and-so said, how you read a Quran or Hadith and you think that you just made, oh, this means this. Right? Because this is what they do. They'll take a Quran, an ayat from the Quran or a Hadith, and they think it supports what they want to say, and they say, this means this. And then when we actually go into the real meaning of it, the correct meaning of it, it's actually opposite or actually refutes themselves. Okay? But he says the false statement of saying opinions can't be supported by the Quran and Sunnah. And what he was trying to say by this is that our personal opinions cannot be supported by the Quran and Sunnah, right? The Quran and Sunnah is what it is. However, throughout time, since the time of Rasulullah, people have had their opinions and used the Quran and Sunnah to support their opinions because they misinterpret the Quran and the Hadith. and they just apply it to their own context of what they want it to mean. And they don't follow the methodology that I laid out, where they follow what Allah said, what Rasul said, and what the ijma, or the consensus of the scholars of the Sahaba, said. Perfect example, we should all know about Abu Bakr and how he went to war with some of the Muslims at the time because they decided not to pay zakat. Well, some of those groups actually used the Quran and Hadith to support their opinion of why they shouldn't have to pay zakat anymore. Okay, so you'll find this, that if people are savvy enough and they want to like twist things enough, they can use the Quran and Sunnah to support whatever they want to do. But you'll find that it doesn't actually follow correct Sunni methodology. So just I'm going to end this video on this topic, and then we'll get into part 3, is the part about fitna. And this gets into the pillar of priority. Because remember, this brother was contacting us talking about peace. I want to talk about how you guys are inciting violence. You guys can't talk about people's brothers, mothers, sisters, and this and that. And this is a common theme, especially with us, since we had the R2F show, and it gained a lot of traction and people have been listening. Everybody so far, the only criticism that we have is about how we are delivering the message. The criticisms we get is that we laugh too much, we joke too much. Then they make things like you guys are being too harsh. This guy was saying that we're slandering people and insulting people and all this. This is what the complaints are, but no one actually has reached out to us yet to actually say what we're saying what we're saying is wrong, to defend the opposite position of when we talk about the 7 sultans and the shirk or the halal marriages or any other transgressions that occur in TMOA or false teachings that occur in TMOA. They actually don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about you guys laugh too much, or you guys joke, or you guys said the word nigga, or you guys whatever it is, right? That's what they'll complain about, which of course, like I said, we constantly say, yeah, we do have some improvements to make, which we've come a long way, of course, but of course we'll always make mistakes. But again, remember the pillars. Priority. You guys want to talk to us about whatever, alleged backbiting, alleged slander, alleged joking and laughing too much, but you absolutely refuse to talk about shirk. Remember, at the beginning of this video, this guy was saying, I'm not talking about the issues you guys want to talk about. I'll be honest, I ain't talking about that. You want to talk about, again, cutting the front lawn, mowing the grass, pruning the bushes while the house is on fire. We want to talk about the fact that the house is on fire. That's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about shirk. And the reason why I brought up fitna with him, one, it was a knowledge check to see, like, okay, where's his understanding, right? What does he understand from the Holy Quran and the Sunnah? Is he somebody that just reads things and interprets things for himself? And this is where I checked him and found he's just someone that just reads and interprets things for himself. Because I asked him, I said, what is fitna? When Allah is talking in the Holy Quran about fitna, what is he talking about? And I made a mistake because I made the reference to the ayats being in Surah Al-Tawbah, which I think there is an ayat in Surah Al-Tawbah, but I just did a quick look. I couldn't find it, but there's multiple ayats in the Quran talking about fitna. And here's one in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah says, and fight them until there is no more fitna, disbelief and worshiping of Allah, others along with Allah. Right? That's the parentheses. That's what's telling you the meaning of what fitna actually means in this context. And the religion, and all and every kind of worship is for Allah alone. But if they cease, let there be no transgressions except against the Dhalimin, the polytheists and the wrongdoers. So this ayah talks about fitna, and it's a direct revelation is in reference to actually fighting against the pagans, the Meccans, right? Of course, as R2F, we're not saying that you should go and start fighting the members of TMOA and committing jihad and all that against them. We've said this very many times, right? But the lesson in here is telling us what is the most important type of wrong. What is the most important issue? What is the issue that is equivalent to our house burning on fire? And that issue is fitna. or in other words, shirk. Because remember, I asked him what fitna was in the Holy Quran. He said, oh, tests and trials. Were the Muslims fighting during the time of Rasul? Were Rasul and the Sahabas fighting the non-Muslims, the pagans, the kafirs? Were they fighting them because of the tests and trials? No. They were fighting them because of shirk, the fitna, disbelief in worshiping others with Allah. And you can go to any tafsir, right? I like to use tafsir Ibn Kathir because he uses the statements of the Sahabas and the Tabi'een to give the explanation, and that's what we want to go for. Abu Malik, Abu Aliya, Mujahid, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ikrama, Al-Hasan, right? Al-Hasan, Al-Qadada, like all these individuals all said shirk, polytheism is worse than killing, right? When we're talking about fitna, we're talking about shirk, okay? And then they go on to say, if they abandon their injustice, which is shirk in this case, then do not start transgressions against them. Okay, so he came with this whole thing about peace. We need peace. We need understanding. We need common ground. That common ground is to get rid of the fitna first. Let's get rid of the fitna, right? We can't ignore the fitna and then start talking about we're going to have peace and understanding and coexistence, right? Because as Muslims, we cannot coexist with shirk. Okay, we cannot say, oh yeah, we're the same. We love each other and this and that. While one party is committing shirk. It can't happen. Remember, fitna is shirk. He equated this to like war and peace. Well, to have peace, we need to stop the fitna first. Okay? To have peace in our argumentation, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the shirk. We don't want to talk about backbiting or slander or all these other false allegations you have against us if you aren't willing to talk about shirk. Okay? Let's talk about first things first. Shirk. Let's talk about that. And again, this is another ayat. This is Surah Anfal, where Allah says, and fight them until there's no more fitna. Okay? And the explanation in the Tafsir Ibn Kathir, he says, like, so that there is no more shirk. So we're going to keep arguing and debating and giving our facts and presenting our facts and figures to get rid of the shirk. When you want to have a conversation, when you want dialogue, when you want engagement, we are not going to engage with anybody unless they agree that we are actually going to talk about the shirk. So like, yeah, like we told Mike, if you want to sit and talk about peace and present whatever it is that you want to present to us, you want us to listen to you, we will listen to you. But all we ask for you is to listen to us, because what we're going to tell you about the shirk and all the other falsehoods, not even all the major falsehoods, the biggest issues, which is like shirk and bid'ah, right? We're going to talk about those things to you, but he was unwilling to listen. Okay, so that's the part two that I'm going to go on as I get more time to address the other issues that came up during this conversation with this individual. And I hope these recordings, I hope these videos help people develop strategies to engaging with these cult people, so that you're not caught up into their shenanigans. They all have the same. And for those of you that have been privately engaging with these people on your own time, you guys already know this. It's literally the same conversation with just maybe a little different talking points that they all go to, right? So we'll continue with these, and hopefully it'll be beneficial. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.